Okay, fine. Yeah,
Let me guess, you've never looked at his email.
it had, I don't know, all sorts of things.
All right.
I just have to explain it.
All right, proof of notification, I got noticed, they sent me an email saying it was posted downstairs, and I know it was sent out, MIS sent it out to, they sent it to, so. All right, and we don't need to use the mics today, we're using the owl, so online, if anyone can't hear us, they'll let us know. All right, an agenda approval, we have a 7-point agenda. Get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
Motion by Gentis. I'll second. Second by Fleming. Sorry, I had to think for a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, and I'll actually just have you come and sit at the table with us, if you don't mind. So we have a representative from MSA, is it Todd?
Correct.
Okay. Sure, that's fine, yeah. All right. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate your ability to be here on such short notice.
No problem.
We're finally getting all our ducks in a row here, so. So I thought if you want to just, we've all seen the,
Yeah, should we open that up?
yeah, so we've all seen the presentation or the proposal that you sent to Mike Bendel. So maybe you just want to give some highlights, tell us a little bit about yourself and mostly I think what it would be important for the community to hear is what work you propose to do, at what cost, and also what relationship you've had with Richland County, your history with Richland County.
Well, first I'll start with myself just briefly. My name's Todd Halverson. I came up to the county ranks and worked with counties from 88 to 98. I was essentially the second GIS person in the state for a county government. So I go way back with Jefferson, Dorr, and then I spent 7 years at Columbia County as the land information director, basically Mike's counterpart. So pretty much have seen a lot of GIS coming through. I mean, and when I went to MSA in 98, I actually did all the data conversion for Columbia. MSA at that time in the 2000s, all the counties were trying to get all their land records base data together. There was a thought at that point that the funding mechanisms that were used to fund the kind of efforts we're talking about were to go away. And in fact, we were working with Richland at that time. So we've done parcel mapping, in essence, base maps, GPS, PLSS. I don't want to throw out too many acronyms, obviously, but we've done that probably a dozen to 20 counties around the state and several other counties around Iowa, Minnesota, and Illinois. So seeing a lot of growth in my background. So we've been with Richland County since about 99, 2000. So I think at that point the county had 2 townships converted, and then we were hired on to replace the next firm. And I've seen a lot of ebbs and flows with the whole land records program. I mean, your budgets go up, budgets go down, funding, special efforts by the state, new technology. I mean, when we started all this, we never thought about the cloud, much less mobile. And so we've kind of seen it all, basically, and have worked with the county and whatever the county really wanted. So whether our effort was more involved, such as what we're looking at here in this RFP, or if it was more of a support role, which is kind of what we've been in for the last few years. You know, the technology and the techniques change so much that it's really hard at a county level, speaking from personal experience, to keep up with that. I'm not saying you need to keep up with everything the day it happens, but at some point, Bill Gates makes enough changes, or somebody else makes enough, the cloud, the telephone companies, or whoever, the communication companies make enough changes that we have to progress with that. We can't leave systems the same, which is why we have digital mapping now. We use the internet to that advantage. I mean, when we started in the early 2000s, it was all about printing maps in the property lister at that time. That's what we focused on. And you still get a fair amount. The courthouses are a different animal. They get a lot of people that come in here. They're in town. They would stop to talk about their land or whatever concerns they have. So mapping is still part of that. That's your tax base, that's your revenue source. So it's important that we keep up with that information. And there are different workflows that counties work on. My career, I've seen it go from where it was almost all county work, now it's municipal work and utility work, and it's asset management. It's about what's breaking, what's gonna break, and what do we have to replace next. And I don't really see counties as that much different. If anything, government as a whole tends to, we want to do things the way we know how to do. We're comfortable with that. We know it works. It's not broken. Why mess with it? But in some regards, this technology offers you some opportunities, I think, that counties maybe in many regards have been a little bit slower to adapt. I'm talking about the ability to use the cloud to communicate. Some of the cloud technologies that are out there to do some of the work that maybe we can make simpler. And that falls outside of your scope that you requested here. But those are the kind of, that's just giving you an idea of the way I think. And that's because I've worked with counties this long that I'm always looking for a more efficient way to do things. And if it's beyond texting and emails, we just heard about a little problem here with emails, for instance. So is there another way within the system, the process, that we can adjust to make it more efficient? So we've got a lot of layers to track and keep up here. Some of it should go fairly simple. They don't change that often. But some of that revolves around communication. For instance, when a highway is being redone, new addresses, zoning changes, that type of thing. And some of those things we can actually put in place in the workflows. If they don't exist, we can look at that, maybe streamline that so staff can do it within the context of what they do in their normal day-to-day things without turning the organization on its head. That's the key, because technology for technology's sake isn't good either. You want to work with the person who has to do this, whose job it is to maintain X, Y, Z, and yet allow them to use a tool that maybe we can work with to get that improved. Example, I work with public works directors all the time. These gentlemen drive heavy equipment. They're no different than farmers or anything else. My family comes from Stoddard area. They were a farming family. So I get it. I got my folks using tablets. I'm happy as heck that they do that. You know, we're communicating that way. But I work with public works guys, it's the same thing. They're not comfortable with that tech. So that my goal has been with the 150 different communities that we've worked with, that we've implemented some of these systems with, to make it as simple for them to use, to adapt to. So it doesn't mean I have to drop everything and learn something completely new. I can take what I do normally, and yeah, I've got a little adjustment in there, but it's not going to turn, I don't have to stop everything and do that. And so we're always looking for those ways to make it more efficient, make it simple. And then some of that you ease into it. So once the person gets comfortable with it, then maybe we will do a little bit more of an adjustment and kind of work our way into that. Those are just some of the ideas that I had as I drove over here today that I wanted to express. But the hours that you see here in the proposal are basically were the number that Lynn, who I've known for over 20 years, basically thought that she was spending her time doing. Some of this is her best estimate. We're only going to do what you ask us to do. So if the estimate comes in lower, you know, interest rates are up. Are we going to see that much more building activity? I don't know. Maybe that's not going to take that much maintenance, or some new system comes into the 911 environment. We've been through several 911 systems in multiple counties where they're on a third system already. So there's always a little bit of an adjustment that's required at that point. I believe we're on our second one maybe here with Richland County. Again, technology changes. Companies come and go, and so you have to stay with that. And that, to me, 911 is probably one of your more important layers that you need to keep current, just for the safety of your constituents. Most of the parcel mapping is pretty well standard. I know in Richland County, there's not a lot of plats that come through. I mean, not big subdivisions. There may have been a little bit of a hiccup in the last 10 years just due to interest rates, but I think we'll probably see that slow, so I don't see a lot of that really coming. So a lot of it's going to be these onesies, twosies things, you know, and we'll continue to do those. Most of the things I usually break down to what can I do in an hour. how many things can I do? So if I've got 5 splits, can I do 5 splits in an hour? Knowing that it's gonna impact parcel A, the source parcel, and then the child parcel that gets broken off, and then we break those into the different components of the GIS, which may have multiple layers. One for the mapping, one for the system, so, typically what we do is we'll take your layers that are in the cloud, and we're gonna bring those into the environment, we're gonna edit those direct. So instead of having a standalone system here that we edit, and then we go over here and edit this system so the cloud and the internet is updated, we won't do that. We'll actually look to combine those two together and do them as quickly as we can through that, so it's an automatic update. Your data becomes live streamed. There's not an additional effort there per se. So, I don't know, I'm gonna ask you, are there any questions of me? I've been doing a lot of talking here for 15 minutes and.
I have a question too. You want us to go first or?
Yeah, I mean, the relationship you have with the county, your obvious experience, I'm not at all worried about that. But my question is more to do with our procurement process. I see that Lynn wrote out a list of like 12 bullet points that he thought her scope was. And there's no, nothing else I've seen that we corresponded with you guys, but you mentioned man hours or labor hours. We can't say man hours.
That's all right.
So I just want to make sure that the bidders are all on equal footing and you've all seen the same information. So your proposal back has 7 tasks. I just want to make sure those, because some of this stuff's over my head. I just want to make sure that corresponds to those bullet points that were sent you, no more, no less.
As far as I know, that's exactly what she sent. Scott's not here today. He's the one who prepared the proposal. Scott's been working for me for about 17 years. So, he's a heavy duty technical dude. So he's having knee surgery today, so, but I would assume that was the same scope sent to everybody. Regardless, we're only gonna use hours that are, I mean, this is not a building where we have a finite deliverable. This is something that ebbs and flows, and so, you know, in my experience, we set up these technical services contracts with our clients routinely. And they ask me, same question you're asking, and it's a valid question, well, what's it gonna cost? And my question is, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what's gonna break or what Bill Gates is gonna do or what you may need in the future. When we implement these cloud-based systems for communities, one thing I tell them is that your second year tends to be more than your first year. And the reason I tell them that is because now you're starting to get the technology. Now you know what you can do with it. Right now, you're just thinking about X, Y, and Z. And as you become comfortable with it, you're like, well, can I do X? Can I do Y? And so we tell them, here's a number. It's a number that best guess number that we can provide you. We're only gonna do what you ask us to do or what's required. We're not gonna go in there and just say, well, today I feel like working on Richland stuff and I don't have anything to do. It doesn't work that way. This is about continuing the relationship we've had with the county, which is now over 20 years. I don't want to endanger that, so these numbers that you're seeing here very well could be high. I doubt that we will go higher, to be honest with you. I would sincerely doubt that. So we'll do our best. And when there becomes significant things that might fall on the edge of some of these scopes, I always ask the client, don't be afraid to ask what you think it's gonna take, and I'll shoot you a number. And then we'll shoot to be underneath that number even. And that's typically how I've done business since I've been at MSA for going on 25 years.
Well, like I say, for me, all of the different IT tasks, where the boundary stops or what's in the scope we've asked and what's not in the scope is hard for me to understand.
Right.
So that's why I want to make sure that the note that Lynn sent and saying this is what I do, that's been equally shared for everyone and that's all you're quoting. And I understand it's a guess. I get that. But that's my main question.
When I used to meet with the county regularly, and Kathy will remember this, but there were times that I would actually set up presentations to introduce the committee to the technology and what we were talking about, so you could understand it better to make better decisions as well. As we went more into a support role, then we kind of got away from doing that. It would seem to me that maybe that would be a good thing to do, like once a quarter. Let's talk about this. And what I like to do, we've seen that you all got tablets, is I'd like to introduce it to you on that if that's possible. Now, if it's not possible, I will bring a tablet and let you use it. And I'll explain to it. Or if I see something that I think it's not in the scope, but it's something that if we invest in, say, $2,500 in, it might save you that $2,500 over the course of the next 2 weeks for sure, and then beyond that. Then that's the kind of thing I'm always looking for.
So you've been talking about the cloud-based, so do we currently have a cloud-based?
Access, yes. We set that up for you.
All right.
We
So
support
there
that.
So there wouldn't be any additional cost as
No.
far as that's already.
Just other than a task that I would bring to you through Mike or through the committee and say, this might be what situation you might want to consider. Like I said, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
That's the hard part about
Right.
this.
And as a, and you would, all of these tasks would be done remotely? Or would
Yes.
there
Oh,
be
yes.
a body in Richland
That-
County at some?
There's a benefit from the 2000s I wish we would have had. Because back then, the county paid for me to come over here. And so we don't need to do that as much anymore. So that is huge, WebEx.
Right.
I mean, hey, Todd, we got 30 minutes for you, or 20 minutes to do a demonstration on this and talk about, well, we can WebEx it, so being at 20 minutes, you just saved yourself several $100. So, I mean, we can really stretch your dollars, and I'm always looking for those opportunities to do that.
So really for you to implement this proposal, there's no additional cost, it's straight up just paying the hourly rates of whatever task we ask you to
Right,
do.
when we're asked to do something.
Right.
It's basically, this is probably, and again, I'm saying this is probably your worst case scenario based on what I know.
And Steve.
I don't
to
even like to
answer-
use the term worst either, by
Right.
the way, but.
To answer your question, the same email that Lynn sent to them was sent to the others as well.
Yeah.
That's not, they all, so they all have the same.
Yeah, I would hope so,
Yeah.
that
You
everything.
should have gotten those emails I sent you.
Yeah.
I saw the email, but I didn't see anything that had like, you know, a bid due date or, anything like that. And it just seemed,
It wasn't a formal
Seemed
request for
informal.
proposal, it was an informal request for
Yeah.
proposals.
Madam Chair, to ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, can you just briefly, because obviously there's all this technology and we need it. You said the second year we'll be wanting more. So what do you, give me an example of what you're
Okay,
talking
so
about.
I was talking about the clients who get into the tech, on the cloud stuff, my municipal clients specifically. I tell them that there are things that you're not thinking about right now that you're going to learn you can do with it.
Give me
so-
one example.
Oh, so right now, the big thing with communities is lead and copper water services. And we're all aware of Flint, Michigan. And I have a lot of clients who have the same cloud GIS systems, maybe not as parcel and source map based, but more on managing their water system, their sewer systems, their streets, okay? And so they're just looking at it as like a digital map to help them with locates, that type of thing. And that's the classic entry level. I can build an application, I have to do inspections. So I can build an application that lets me take that tablet, go into the home, do your cross-connection inspection that the city has to do for you. And then I can check your water service where it comes into the home. I can check that as galvanized pipe, go back, check a building permit, find out the house was built in 1975, but it does not have lead. Bing. Well, now that I've got this lead and copper thing, requirement from the EPA to DNR, and I have a cross-connection inspection, do you know what that is? That's so your water doesn't backflow from your toilet into your water
Yeah,
source. Okay, so Wisconsin's been doing that for about 20
Yeah.
years now. So those are two different requirements that a municipality may have. So what I'm trying to do is build an app on that, so we don't have all this paper to manage. One of the problems we're having is the reason we're here, is there's people my age that we're retiring and we know about all this stuff. We know Richland County, I know the parcels, but when I retire, I'm gone. and nobody wants to get a call when I'm riding out a hurricane in Florida or whatever. Point is, I can make an efficiency there so I don't have all this paper, so somebody in the office isn't having to redo the inspection to data enter it. Let's do the data entry when I'm looking at it, let's take a photo of it, done. So that's a case where they're not thinking about that right now unless the state's, which the state is on, everybody, the EPA is on, so they are thinking about it, but that's an example of that. That there may be some other opportunities where we can use the cloud or some mobile access to improve a process and be more efficient. And then we're not having to hire people to do data entry. But yet I gotta
We're
make,
converting a lot of things here.
correct.
So you're saying we're going forward,
Yeah.
which I assume.
Yeah. We did all the scanning for you, for instance, all your large format scanning, we brought a scanner in here, we taught Lynn how to do the scanner
Yeah,
back in, or you were even here, Mike, but,
Yeah.
about 2010 maybe,
that's good.
28, I lose track, 20 years now, everything's kind of, pandemic really messed with my memory. I just can't remember who's where, what, when anymore, I lost those 2 years of my life, so.
All right, any other questions?
I have a
Yeah.
question. Looking at all those bullet points, I kind of looked at those in the presentation or where you have the 5 or 6 different sections.
Yep.
I don't see the sanitary specifically listed. I know you said that whatever we give you, that's what you'll do, but just looking in there, I don't know if I missed it or if that's
I don't-
listed some other way.
We're going to do pretty much the septic part of it. We go out there and we do the GPS and all that stuff. The only time it's going to be really upgraded is when we do the weekly updates.
Okay.
Gets put onto the big map.
So it'll be done in the office is what you're saying, of what you can do. They'll
What
do
we can,
limited.
what we can do, it's just that when we do a weekly update, which we haven't done for 2 months now, that's when it gets done.
Okay.
They're part of it.
Because on here, it's listed separately, that weekly update, and then it's got the sanitary stuff listed separately. Okay.
Yeah, the timeframes may change. You know, if as business ebbs and flows, if it doesn't need to be weekly, let's do monthly, then, you know, we can, again, it's,
I just wanted to be sure that was covered, because I didn't see sanitary anything listed in your
well,
proposal.
he talked about GPS, and there's been a wealth of changes in that now too as well. I mean, that's constantly changing. We've been here and we use the handhelds, and I believe you have a R1 right now. Well, now I can get 1 centimeter grade GPS to work with my cloud systems. Which is crazy to me, because one of our early conversations, and Kathy, I know you were there, was when we were dealing with GPS and section corners, and the bids were coming in, and that wasn't from my firm, but I was basically helping the committee along. The bids were coming at what, $1,500 to $2,000 per corner. I could take that same $2,000 and buy the same accuracy GPS and do it through the cloud now. Now I have a restriction as far as me, because I'm not a registered land surveyor, doing that. But it just shows you how technology has changed in 20 years. It's mind boggling.
Just paid a bunch of money for one quarters not that long ago. Is that what we were-
And then that's remonumentation and then the documentation of that, but you need to be an RLS to do that. I could go collect a location for my mapping, but I couldn't publish the coordinates.
Any other questions? Mr. Carroll?
Of the roughly 380 employees, how many of them are the folks that would do this kind of work? And do you feel like it's not a large capacity ask to add this to your?
No, I don't think so at all. So our team, I've been with MSA for 25 years, and we've always been kind of this niche group, to be honest with you. And there was basically me and 1 and me and 2, but in the last, I would say 5 to 6 years, we've had exponential growth, and we've added new staff within the last 2 years, and we were looking to add another person as well. So GIS has become very much mainstream.
Okay.
I mean, I used to spend the same half hour spending what GIS was. Now, everybody uses Google every day, you know, which is address-based GIS essentially. But no, it won't be a problem. It won't be a problem at all. That's, I think, one of the things to assure you is that we have 3 senior individuals. There's myself, Scott, and then Jeff Paul, who's in our Minneapolis office. Again, the cloud works for us as well, very well. We can be remote in terms of doing that. And that allows us to take advantage of who has availability in terms of if there's an emergency. For instance, when you had the flood back in 2008,
Yes.
there were multiple floods. that we've been involved in. There's also one tornado, I think, in there where we had to help Lynn out with going back to something you're not anticipating. So now I look at that and the ability to take a mobile app and go out and do damage inspections or evaluations and document those types of things for FEMA or whatnot are huge. Huge efficiency, and that, literally the last one I know that they were collecting it mobile, but we didn't have some of the abilities and they were re-entering it in the computer system when it came back.
So one brief question about the cloud. I'm assuming security wise.
Your cloud is actually Esri. Esri is the world's largest, and they're through Amazon services, and we've never had a breach in 7 years. And we were the first Wisconsin company to become authorized in ArcGIS Online in the state. So we jumped on it right away because we actually hosted the county system on our own server at that time. The challenge was that every time Bill Gates or Windows changed, it had a ripple effect. The database structures had to change, the GIS had to change, the application had to change. So that turned it into pretty much a $5,000 to $7,000 effort. Well, that was starting to happen about every 4 years. And it was painful for us and painful for you. So when Esri came in, we've gone through similar adjustments, but none of the systems, they always make sure those systems are upgradable. So there might be some adjustments that we made to a layer or something, or to a service or to an app, but it's never gets to that kind of extent anymore. And I'm so happy for that. I used to hate making those phone calls.
All right. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for your time.
Like I said, our services are built on trust. I've been at these meetings for a number of years. I believe one committee even sang happy birthday to me one year.
Well, what's the day so we can do?
It's November 20th, so I'll be in a deer stand that morning, but, I also had I've had multiple committees, Adams County and, Adams Green and Richland were my first 3 GIS clients at MSA. So you folks, along with Sherry and Jody, and we're all getting close to that age now where we're thinking about the next stage in life, but, we're basically family. So I've always appreciated my time here, so I look forward to working with you some more.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yes, nice meeting you too. And again, if you would like a presentation, go over the basics. I'm sorry, after half an hour, it's kind of hard to not drop an acronym. But when I go into the Farm Services Building with Kathy, I get those 2 FSA
Oh my
and
God.
other programs.
Land
What is
conservation
this government
so
acronyms?
Full of acronyms.
It's so
crazy.
funny.
It is. It's crazy to learn them all.
And I haven't had the pleasure of meeting this technology person, but I know
Oh, he's great.
Barb and Jason
Uh-huh.
quite well, so. I'm John. John, please meet you, John. I'm sure we'll get to know each other. Looking forward to it. Good luck. Excuse me.
You can have a seat over there.
Yeah.
Hi there. Are you guys?
Good.
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for such short notice, being able to show up
We
today.
don't
I
have
really
to use the
appreciate
microphone
it.
today because we have something.
Oh, right on. Okay. New tech.
Oh, the owl? Yeah, yeah.
No, well, we're
You
happy
don't-
to be here. Appreciate it. So,
So I think I talked to you briefly, just, if you want to just tell us a little bit about, we've seen your proposal, everyone has seen that. If you want to talk a little bit about, the work that you would do, but also about your relationship with Richland County, what work you've done with us in the past that sets you up to be able to do this work.
sure.
So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off. I'm Troy Maggie, I'm the Executive Director of Southwest Regional Planning. This is Jacqueline Ascendo. Jacqueline's our GIS coordinator. She's been with us we were talking today, only 4 years, but it's been a fast 4 years. So she's the guru of everything GIS in-house, including managing a couple of day-to-day folks. So I'll talk big picture about scope and purpose, and then Jacqueline knows all the details, software, and can answer that. So big picture, how we tried to, frame the proposal is around what I think regional planning brings to our county partners. We're capacity builders. That's kind of the framework that we look at. That's my core function. I was in the Peace Corps where I was teaching shop class without a hammer. When I was in commercial construction, we were building 7,500 square foot a month The typical building speed was 5,000 square foot. So I'm just constantly in that space where we're figuring out how to do things efficiently and effectively. So that's kind of, as you all know, with our counties and our budgets and where we are, how we frame everything is around capacity building, which involves two things. It's enhancing the capacity of the folks we're serving, and actually also cutting down the demand for those services. It sounds a little funny, but I'll talk about how we would do that in this context. So capacity building is kind of framing all this. The other thing is really thinking about the customer. We were on a regional GIS call last week and had this conversation with the other county GIS folks. And I think that's what we lose track of sometimes in government, is who's the customer. Well, it's obviously the property owner, it's obviously your treasurer, but it's obviously, should be obviously as well, that it's your realtors and your engineers, your surveyors and your appraisers who use this information all the time. And we work with them all the time. We are also huge users, as Jack tell you, of your parcel data. We use that all the time. So we have a vested interest in this high quality stuff. One of the things that, should you choose to work with us in this capacity, we would do is probably engage the county's realtors and engineers, and whomever uses this data. That should really be the source of whatever we do, is what those folks need in terms of the functionality, how they use it, how they download it. And we've actually seen in other counties who have done this, they get less requests. So that's what I'm getting at is if we can train and empower the realtors to use the software system, they call you less and you free up time. And so that's when we talk about capacity building. It's one of the best practices that we've learned is to spend maybe once a year, pull them together. The businesses who use your data and make sure they know how to use it and reduce the demand and get data out of the system. So capacity building and customer focus. The third thing that's unique about us is the governance and transparency piece. Our board is 3 members from each of your county, including Mosa, but also Marty Brewer and Richmond. So we bring kind of a unique governance view. This public data, this is kind of one of the core functions historically of government, right? Before there were counties, there were townships who were selling tracts of land. And that's just continued for 2 some odd years. And so this is very much a core function of government. And I think governance and good governance around this data is really critical. So that's the kind of stuff that has informed our approach. I certainly won't read line for line, although I can speak to any of it. Just briefly on the first page, Mike was good enough to kind of give us a scope of work. And so I kind of just highlighted, just so for clarity's sake, what the scope of work is as we were provided. I do have on page 2 a couple of different staff members, and Jacqueline's the only one who joined us. We've learned over the last several years there's a huge demand for GIS, city, county, private level. And they're getting harder to fill these jobs for a variety of reasons, including general workforce shortage, but GIS in general is getting more difficult to fill. And so we've been strategic in how we fill that. And Jacqueline was just getting run ragged some time back. And so we have 3 different folks here. Jacqueline, again, is our coordinator, and she's overall quality control. She's scoping. She helps supervise and manage these other 2 folks. Nikki Anderson, we brought on board fall. Is that this year?
This year, spring,
Yeah, so Nikki's background in education was in disaster management, hazard mitigation, but she did a whole lot of GIS. And so we knew we needed more capacity. So she's got probably mid to high level GIS capacity, actually the capability. And then Griffin Cozio is our data guru, but if it's got to do with a computer, he knows how to do it. Most folks I say can't learn GIS, but Griffin's picking it up really well. So when it comes to very elementary basic functions, creating a point and basic attributes. So we got not only 3 different folks here to fill the need, but we have 3 different levels of skill sets. So that benefits you in a couple of ways. You always have capacity. We're going to have folks to do the work. We also bill whomever works on the job. We gave you sort of a not to exceed estimate, but I'm not going to charge you Jacqueline's salary for something Griffin can do. So we're going to position our folks appropriately when it comes to skill looking, which impacts your budget. As for me, I tag along any kind of reporting and invoicing and anything that might be once the project's up and going. So anything to add on that, Jack, about this?
that cognizant.
Otherwise, we kind of talked about the larger assumptions and clarifications, some value added elements as a partner for Southwest Regional Planning Commission. We've done a lot of work throughout the years in the county, everything from safe routes to schools plans, to outdoor recreation plans, to your comprehensive plans in each of your cities, villages, and counties, I think except for one. We've recently wrapped up long-range comprehensive plans in Richland Center and Lone Rock, and we're wrapping up BOAS. And those are pretty mapping intensive as well, future land use maps, zoning map updates. We sent you the link here for our online zoning map. So we're pretty engaged in the county in a variety of departments. We'll be working in 2023 with Roxanne Kluber-Tanz-Gerber over at the transit office there to do their long-range transit plan. So we'll be doing some mapping and data there around supply and demand of where are, for instance, where the, I forget what you call them in Richland County, it's the shared ride services. Sometimes they're called volunteer rides, or sometimes they're called driver escorts, but it's that supply and demand. So thinking about where the drivers and the riders are, so there's mapping components there that we have outside funding for. And then there's a variety of projects that I've kind of listed here that we have on the horizon, including some improved infrastructure mapping that we think we can secure some funding for to look at. The other thing we do, and I mentioned this, we did a couple years back, and due to some demand and turnover, we started pulling together the GIS specialists in each of the 5 counties that we work with. So we had that meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And Jacqueline will be running that moving forward. But it's really a community of practice. So your GIS specialist would often go to what they call the Land Information Association meetings. It's a statewide association. And there you'll learn about historical stuff or new requirements or new demands, but it's not necessarily place-based. So the value here is you get these 5 guys who often work with the same surveyors and engineers, so on, to kind of share practices and look for ways to collaborate. So it was a good meeting. I think we're going to do it probably twice a year.
One will be in April.
Yeah. And so the gaps between conferences is when we'll kind of hold these regional events to get some input in. So those are some of the things that we're currently invested in the county.
Troy, can I just ask a quick question? Have you guys done work like what we're asking for here for another municipality or county?
We've done, Jacqueline's done obviously a fair amount of parcel mapping. We worked with the data extensively. Yeah, we don't currently have a contract at the county or city level. Well, that's not true. We have City of Platteville. Well, they again, workforce issues. They've decided to outsource their GIS, so we'll be picking up that contract.
And it's similar to what this proposal is.
So they'll use the county parcel maps. And again, that's, I guess you can speak to the parcel map.
So I did talk with Tiffany about the parcel fabric for
Mhm.
Grant County. Even though, the city of Platteville uses, Grant County's parcels, they do have their own parcels,
Mhm.
which they have on the map, which we will be maintaining.
Yeah.
So, we're capable of doing those things. We also have done like zoning updates for each of the, cities that we work for and have on our online map. So, twice a year, they send us their updates, we update those maps. We do not only provide them with the online version, we print like hard copy maps for them also. So we do some of that. We've helped, some of our counties with, section, corner remonumentation. Grand County's GIS person was just talking to me about that. So it's, I think for all of the things that you're asking about, we do have the capacity to do those things.
That was good.
No, that's
Go
okay.
ahead, sorry.
I was just kind of trying to hit the highlights of the proposal, which, I'm gonna speak to.
Mr. Carey, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, again, like I said earlier, GIS and all the different aspects are over my head a bit. But Lynn tried to define it as 12 bullet points in her email of what her scope, what her work tasks are. And so that to me implies, well, there must be some GIS tasks that aren't on her list that she doesn't do.
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure that you guys saw her scope and feel like you know where the boundaries are and what you're committing to and what you're not going to do. Because you've mentioned a not to exceed, and that kind of surprised me, that some of it's going to be based on what happens in the next year, and you don't know what could happen in terms of development or or changes to technology or whatever. So, if you guys are comfortable with that, then I am too, but I just want to make sure that, when you looked at those 12 bullet points, that you said, yeah, that makes sense. That is what we would expect a county GIS technician to be doing, and we can do that. Okay.
And when you talk about technology, I think we do have a question regarding that. We looked at, what Richland County has at the moment. It looked to us that you have a consultant which you work through, to house your data and kind of project it. The online map has a consultant's name on there. I don't know if you want to describe to us, how your system is now. Is it like a cloud-based, system where you send the data, to this consultant and they house it for you, or you work directly with Esri?
You want to take that?
No.
Do you know the answer to that question? So he just spoke to us, the person who was here before is who we've been working with. And he did say that we are cloud-based already, because I asked that question.
Okay.
Does that mean that it's on their, if it's cloud-based, that means it's not on our server, that means it's in the cloud, right? I mean, just as a basic concept, am I correct? So I don't know that I can answer that question accurately. I do know that he said that we are cloud-based.
Okay, I know there are like different types, so there's, a lot of people go the Amazon route, or they would have like a.
And he mentioned Amazon.
Mhm.
Okay.
And he mentioned Esri.
He did mention Esri.
Yep.
So the final product ends up on Esri's website, I'll call it. But it could be that the data itself is stored on an Amazon platform.
Which, are we paying that bill directly, or do we pay that through MSA?
That's
Is that the question?
the question.
Right.
So, and I think the reason that's a question, to Steve's point, we're comfortable with this. You know, I was the zoning director in Lafayette County, and in terms of development pace, there's parallels between Richland and Lafayette in terms of, you know, it would be remarkably good, but remarkable to have huge increases in development in the coming years. So, you know, we're pretty comfortable with it not to exceed for a spell. That is one of the reasons I give you this report out. If there's a need to change the contract, you'll know why it is specifically in this driving. There should have been the attachment, I believe.
I saw that.
So, what's not included in here is, that piece, right?
So if there's a fee that we're paying through MSA to house it, our data, to send it to Esri or to send it to the cloud or whatever that is, then we would need to pay, if we're not using MSA, we would have to pay that fee, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
And that's not, well, you're not including that fee in here because we don't even know what that fee is.
Well, we didn't know how you had it set up, and you've got a couple options, frankly. You could still use MSA to project all of this information if you want us to take over the maintenance of the stuff. I guess I'm sure they're charging, they should.
Right, I
That's
mean,
how
it's
business
because it's costing them, so
Sure,
I'm sure they're not
of course,
just
and
giving
that's-
it to us.
Obviously, that's highly appropriate. So then you're paying us to maintain it and then to project it, and you create a step in the path, which I wouldn't recommend. The other one is to get a server. Most counties have a GIS server, which starts you at 17,000 plus another 5,000
Every year.
every year.
So
So those,
Every year.
So the first year you would pay 17,000 to get the server, and then every year after that will be 5,000. And that's what the other counties in our region pay for. Yes.
and they do that for a couple. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
It'd be nice to know what our current.
We
fee
do,
is
we need to know what our
compared.
current fee is, yeah.
Well, and we wouldn't recommend a server from what we know at this point for a couple of reasons. Server,
I thought you said we needed it.
we got three options.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, so the first was to stay with MSA, let them project data that we maintain. There's a middleman role there, which may not be to your value. The second is to get a server, your server, we log in, your server, MSA logs in.
Then it's not cloud-based though, right?
So it does have a cloud-based portion of it,
Okay,
but you could go the route of having like a hard drive sitting here in Richland County rather than the cloud-based.
Right. I
So,
mean, I think one of the things we we're talking about for efficiency is that if it's cloud-based, if you have, you could use an iPad or something to be in the field actually making updates instead of having to
yeah,
come write it down and come back in and then enter the
Right.
data manually.
You got a server too, then you're also worrying about cybersecurity and all that.
Yeah.
That's also covered with the cloud, so.
yes.
Okay.
Right.
And the third option?
Yeah, well, so just to back up, the server is good if you have lots and lots and lots of data. And most of your work is parcel files, which are not big data points. Or you have address points, probably septic points, whatever that would be.
Roads and toll lines.
So Grant County is twice as big as you, they've got a server. Lafayette County, if you go to their website, they've got a whole bunch of cool maps about tourism and marketing and ATVs, and it's very busy and cool. So if you're just kind of looking at what we have seen that you have online, it's substantially less. So you may not need the server. The third would be, which is what we do for most of our maps, which are heavy in the data, which is we use the online GIS platform. So if you want to speak to that, we use some of that.
Which is the portal, what they call the ArcGIS portal, and so what would happen is we would have access, I'm sure you do have access, even though MSA has access to your data, you also do have access. What would happen is we would basically take that data, we'll put it on our system and we would have it sent out, and it would look exactly the same as what you have now, and we would kind of change the interface to say Richland County, all that information that the MSA one says now. And the other side is what we call credits. So the way ArcGIS portal works is for each of the data sets that you have there, it consumes credits based on how many megabytes it has. And so we would have to go back, look at each of your data sets, calculate how many credits it will consume. On a daily basis, we can give you an annual cost of how much credits it will cost, and that is much less than having the server and paying 17,000 and 5,000 every year.
We have a lot of data. We pay about $1,200 for the credits. And what Jacqueline found out, the reason we can do that is she does all of the GIS work offline and then uploads it. If you're always working online, every little change is online, then you suck those credits up and it gets really expensive. So that may be one of those things, if you have someone doing field work, it may in fact be to your advantage, unless you need something up there absolutely right now. It may be to your advantage to come to the office and send us or MSA the data.
And Troy, with the system that we have now, we could still have people work from the field and enter data. We just need to give them access, editing rights, basically to edit the data from wherever they are.
Would that be double work to not enter it on the field and then come back and do it? I'm confused on that.
That would actually cut down the work because if it's the sewer guys or the water guys, they would be entering directly from the field, the coordinates or the attributes. Rather than, what we would essentially be doing is just spot checking the data that they enter in as to whether they're accurate or not. Yeah.
And we'll be doing that for Platteville, training them to make sure that, because if you enter something inaccurately, then we're gonna project it inaccurately. But there's another step in there if you wanted to have the guys enter in the field and then come and email the data to us. But so long as they've been trained on entering it correctly, it's negligible time.
Very simple.
You mentioned some kind of attachment to your proposal or some,
Yeah, I hope you all got this.
I don't think I did.
What I used for reporting on it's kind of an hourly check.
Yeah, I don't see that in the one we got.
Oh, God, I'm sorry, I'll send that back. Do you mind sending it around, Steve?
Yeah.
So what we do for a couple different contracts, I do it because I'm an uptake project manager, but our clients also like it as well, as each element of the scope of work we track, we bill quarterly. So what you'll see is Steve sends it around, the rest of my, what Steve's sending around there is what we use for one of our economic development partners. We broke out the scope of work, so zoning updates, parcel mapping, whatever that would be, and we track within that quarter. In our payroll system, we obviously have a way to break out our projects and to create notes. So Jacqueline, Nikki, or Griffin would go in and say, okay, an hour and a half to do CSM Swartzen County. So at the end of the quarter, I go in there and I read those notes and I say, okay, an hour and a half, and I use this to track across the scope of work, what we're really spending our time on. To your point, Steve, if I need to come and ask you for more money, then I can very, very clearly say, you really do have a lot more. Congratulations on growth. Or you know what, we're not gonna stay in the ballpark. We're not a for-profit entity, I'm gonna charge you what the hours cost, that'll be the end of it, so. That helps us kind of just be accountable and responsive as a contract scope. Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought I sent that along, I can follow up with that. Sorry, Linda, I put it in my head.
You may have sent it, but it didn't get into my iPad.
Yeah, I put on the iPad the one I got.
Yeah,
Forward
well,
if I
that's my
email.
fault then, I'm sorry, it's my omission.
That's okay.
Any other questions?
It's easy to read that, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you just want to recap, I mean, when you look at what we were asking, that list that Lynn created,
Mhm.
do you have any concerns about being able to provide? And I'm assuming that you would not intend for a person to be here, that it would be done remotely.
Yeah, correct, yeah. Yeah, that's our assumption is that we can do this from our office in Platteville. We can, without charge to the contract, come up for meetings as needed. If there's a value in that upfront or quarterly or whatever, we're very happy to do so. We didn't see, she's no good at shooting her own horn. I didn't see anything on here that has me concerned about Jacqueline's capabilities or even making. We do very highly complex stuff. And the parcels are the base unit of a large amount of our mapping. So we don't have a contract now to go through and create them. She's familiar with that process and comfortable with it, but the stuff that we do on a regular basis has an increased complexity for this. So, Jacqueline, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I only have a question regarding NR 135 and if they do it in-house.
Right, I saw that you had that paragraph. So just to remind everyone, that paragraph where it says, while not included in the list, we have also included to provide mapping support for the county's NR 135 non-metallic mining program. We've excluded any work related to the next gen 911 project since it was not included in Lynn's list essentially.
Mhm.
We probably do have some NG 911 work that will need to be done, but it's a different question at this point.
Okay.
So the NR 135,
But Dalton House.
Okay, good.
So we currently do that for we currently do that for Grant, Greene, and Lafayette counties. So we do have the capacity to do that too.
Yeah, we knew that was often a function of the county GIS, so we just wanted to flag it. But if you do it in-house, that's fine.
well, I mean, maybe that's something we need to get off your plate if you're gonna be stuck as the only sanitation person. Too, I mean, that's something to consider in the future. But that would be an additional, and you would add to your contract saying that this is additional work we would do. But again, only on an hourly rate.
Well, it says that we have also included time to provide the NR
Oh,
135.
that's right.
So they've
yeah.
included that, they've just excluded the
The
911.
911
Right.
stuff,
And that was the NR 135 mapping piece. There can be a lot more of that program, but if you need, if that was something, just we're very familiar with, but. No, in point of fact, I was, no, I'm comfortable with the volume of work, to be honest with you. One of the things, and we've discussed this with Platteville, and I understand how your funding works from the county, you get portions of funding from Register of Deeds and you get the DOA grant money. And so what we've done with Platteville is we have a contract with them to do day-to-day stuff. So that would be your day-to-day stuff. This is mostly what I would call day-to-day stuff. But if you have one big project offset, then what we're doing with Platteville is breaking that out as another contract. So if you had one thing coming up that was big and you needed sorted, then do another contract or whatever. Did you see anything that had you concerned or that I wasn't clear to or speaking about in the proposal? Was there anything we can speak to more clearly?
Mike, did you see anything that you have questions on? Okay,
No, I think
well, thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time.
nice to meet you.
Appreciate time on the agenda and the opportunity to speak with us.
Yeah, so I don't know that we're making a decision today. We're probably gonna ruminate on this a little bit and talk about it at our next zoning meeting, which is the first Monday in
7th.
November. Yeah, so then we'll make our decision, I'm assuming by then at the latest.
Can I just ask one more question? In your current proposal, how it is, I know you mentioned something about the open data portal. Is that included in the your proposal cost as well?
So if you
So I
want
just
to,
looked on our website to kind of see what was out there and I don't see much that's like that. So
yeah,
that's what I'm questioning.
so what we don't have in here is the cost to put it out to the public.
Okay.
That's why I say you've got three
Okay.
options.
Yep.
Based on the volume of data you have and that is currently projected, we would probably recommend, as we mentioned, just paying for the credits and using our system. Now we're a public entity, so if you want it back, it's all yours. If you need access to it, it's yours. But given the volume of your data, that seems to be the most cost effective. I don't know, we don't know the cost of that until we know the volume of data you have, the file sizes, but we've got a lot of stuff up there and we're paying around $1,200. So,
Per year?
yeah, for all of our, and I think I sent you a handful of links to constructability analyses and the broadband stuff. All that stuff is out there and it's around 1,200 a year, so.
I guess I do have one more question for Mike. Their guess or approximate 100 created each year, does that sound reasonable?
That's what Lynn had put down.
Pardon me?
Pardon?
That was what Lynn Newkirk had put down.
I'm asking you, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming. It's such short notice.
Happy to do it. Thank you all.
All right, so we are gonna jump right into item number 5. So I wanted, so that the item in your iPad called O5A, resolution language, I just wanted to remind everyone, so if you go to number 2, levy expenditure reduction, it says develop a course of action if possible where departments and budgets under supervision have a total projected levy operational expense reduction of $50,000 entering into 2024 and the same sustained reduction beyond. The one part I want to bring everyone's attention to is this next sentence. These adjustments in expenditure must account for projected increases in COLA and compensation policy and other employee benefits included with the financial plan. What that sentence means is that it's $50,000 that we need to cut, but we also have to be able to cover the cost of raises and insurance increases from 2024 to 2027. So it's more than $50,000 essentially that we've been asked to cut. When I called our administrator to ask him what that dollar value was, he couldn't tell me. And so I think that we are going to, as a committee, I mean, I can kind of figure it out based on, I know what percent of raises we were proposing over the next 5 years. So, and that included the COLA raises. So, I mean, we have that number I can sort of figure out. I mean, insurance, of course, is going to be a complete guess. We have no idea how much insurance costs will go up. So maybe I'll just put in some percentage, a number percentage there that guesses at that level. But for today, I think we just need to try to come up with our $50,000 reduction. And then I would say we probably should come up with another, $10,000 over 25, 26, and 27. We can break that down into 3,000 a year or 3,500 a year or whatever. And that's what we'll propose because we do have to turn this in by the 31st of October. So we don't have time for another meeting. So, all right, so why don't we jump into what Kathy and Mike, the several different options that they gave us. So, so the first way was to eliminate the secretarial position. I think with insurance,
That's everything.
that is with insurance,
That's with insurance, retirement,
okay.
everything. That's
'Cause I feel like-
salary fringes.
Okay, because when I was talking with Clint, he gave me a higher number, but we'll just go with the 50.
Well, that was what was in 2021. That's what I had.
Yeah, so, and she got into, so for 2023, I think it actually went up quite a bit.
Yeah, so that's the number I had and
And unfortunately, I think I left the little piece of paper where I wrote what he told me at home. I want to say
Cheryl's online. I don't
it was
know if it's on
62,000.
speakerphone.
Yeah, Cheryl, are you actually listening? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You look up for 2023 budget, what Tammy Bender's salary and fringe
For,
totals?
for the, just the land conservation part of it. Because part of it is paid for parks.
Well, we eliminated. There won't be a 5% for parks
No,
either.
I realize that, but that comes out of parks
Oh,
budget.
parks budget, right, yeah.
That comes out of a different budget.
Okay, anyway, so if you look at the list of things that she spends her time doing, obviously that means that those duties have to be done by someone else. At this point, we are talking about Mike and Jackie, and then we've got Kathy, Kent, and
Derek,
Derek. It's my husband's name, I totally should remember that, I was thinking it was something else. So the big concern, because if Tammy's position is still intact, in theory, that position then could be the person who's at the desk so that the office can remain open. She can answer questions, that position could answer questions for zoning. If they're gone, she could at least answer some questions or direct them to where to find information. And then obviously take care of answering questions about land conservation. So with that position gone, obviously, I think the biggest concern you guys have, among many, but one of the biggest concerns is that the office will just literally have to be closed when you guys are all out in the field. Is that correct?
possible.
Not all the time,
No.
but there's gonna be
What
times
are the
when you,
choices? You
right,
tell us, I mean,
well,
if everyone's out in the end, there's no one there.
right,
Well, would you be able to coordinate when you go out in the field or not?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no, like Mike's the same way. You get contractors going out to do
Sure.
certain jobs. If you had, a week of rainy weather and all of a sudden you get good weather. And
right,
if my guys have to be out in the field and say Jackie's gets her sanitation, she's gotta be out in the field, and Mike and I have to attend one of our, county meeting or whatever, now we have no choice but to close it.
right.
So.
It doesn't happen all the
At
time.
last meeting, not that, if you're downstairs and they come upstairs, because somebody just came asking me in the hallway where the zoning office was. Sue Trigg said, since she's sort of part of this committee, that whether she could be, people could tell them to go up to see Sue Triggs, and she would take the questions or something. I mean, she said, offered to do that, right?
She offered to have the phones transferred
Yeah.
to her
Yeah.
department. Although.
I mean, I don't know how.
Because she has a
feasible it is.
full-time deputy
Yeah.
Yeah.
as well.
So I'm just saying that was offered.
Maybe we move the register of deeds downstairs, there's no room down there.
No,
that mess
not with
that's
all
down there.
involved.
Yeah,
Wait, no.
yeah.
I know it's a little awkward, but I just want to know if you said that.
Okay, so, there's also all of the other things that, other than her physical presence to answer questions in the door,
Yeah.
there's a long list of things that she does.
Right.
So the question I had for Kathy, was, okay, so we have Kent doing farmland preservation work. That's his primary job is the farmland preservation program, which, brings in a lot of money to our taxpayers. It's a tax, deduction for many of our farmer taxpayers. And so my question to her was, would it be easier to eliminate Kent's position because of everything that Tammy does? And keep that Tammy's position, but eliminate the farmland preservation technician position? And her response was that the state has rules about who's allowed to do the farmland
It's not like
preservation.
state doesn't have rules to do it, but to be able to do the job, you have to have knowledge
Training in
Training
conservation.
in conservation. So now if you train this secretarial position to do it, they're gonna have to go out in the field. You're still in the same boat, whether you
Whether you do it one way or the other.
But way you do one way or the other, and it's easier to transfer some of the stuff that she does to
Other people.
other people. We can, pick up on doing some of that stuff. It's not that I like doing that, but if that's what has to be done, that's what has to be done.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we had the conversation, and the conclusion that she came to was that if a position has to be eliminated, Tammy's position makes the most sense.
Yeah, because if you eliminate the farmland preservation person, now you're gonna have to pay the secretarial position more money to do.
Yeah.
Because.
And they may not have the background and training to do it.
Correct.
Yeah, so, okay, So
what about the rent money that we're saving since you guys moved from the other
we
building?
can't count that
We can't
because
count
it's
that.
already, it was already cut from our 2020.
It was
Yeah.
already cut, okay. I just wanted to know if that.
Nope.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Considered somewhere, okay.
Yeah. And so then the second way that was brought up was to raise fees in the zoning department. I don't think there was any expectation, well, I guess, this would be an extra $45,000. This would be an extra 3,220, I was trying to see it.
Close.
Right, so having just gone through the process of getting a variance and now a building permit, and it's expensive. I did not know how expensive it was. As far as fees go, I don't really have a problem raising fees. Especially, do you feel that our fees are lower than the surrounding counties, the same or higher?
Same.
The same. So, I mean, I hate to, since we're obviously probably gonna be raising taxes at some point anyway, and then we're raising fees, it's like a double whammy. So to me, the raising fees thing didn't feel as appropriate, but I'm just interested
It's something we could do in 27 or 28 if
if we really had to.
that would be my,
See how they are comparable at that point to other counties?
yeah.
On the other hand, we're talking about cutting a whole position.
Well,
So then the
can I-
GIS position falls into play here.
Yeah.
So this contracts that we've been talking about today, one of them is at 20-some thousand, right?
20,995.
There you go.
And
And then the other one would
45 something.
be about half that.
So,
So
go ahead, Steve.
this assessment of the three ways to do it doesn't really finish the third way. It should say here how much Lynn's position's cost was.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
Right, and so,
I have
You said
89,000 per
89,000.
position.
Like that.
That's what they said the
How-
last meeting.
How much of that is paid, how much of it would be county tax levy?
Depends if you're going to keep on robbing from the grant money.
How much was, let's just say in
It's supposed to
2022,
be 30,000.
how much?
30,000 is coming from the grant.
Okay.
It was coming from tax.
Tax levy?
So
So,
then it's 59,000 from the
Yeah.
levy, is that what we're figuring?
yeah,
See, cause I thought okay, we got that, so we have to subtract the other from that, right? To see,
well, okay, so one of the questions is are we, even if we do the contract, are we still actively gonna be trying to recruit a GIS person and keeping that position open?
wait, what? Say it again?
yeah, I got it.
Are we going to keep the GIS position that we have advertised open, using MSA, paying MSA or Southwest Regional Planning to do the work until we get that position filled? Or are we just assuming we're never gonna have a person here, we're gonna always do a contract? Thank you so much.
Okay, I understand the question. They've tried for a while now to try to find somebody. I would think it wouldn't be fair to them to give them a contract and then chop it off in 2 months.
But they're doing it as needed, requested by the county, that's what the contract is.
Yeah, I
I mean,
mean,
there's no open-end timeframe saying for the next year, we're
no,
doing
we
this,
haven't
we're
set any
saying,
kind of,
And that's
So-
another problem I had with it, the procurement process. We didn't pin down some of that stuff, and we probably should have.
well, I think before we actually fully enter into a contract, that's when all of that would be
Mhm.
nailed down as far as
Right.
how long. What is are you foreseeing a future in which we do not have a person here who does GIS?
I think it's wise to have someone in-house. But you're not going to get anyone because you keep on lowering the prices down. I mean, like I said, the salary, $20 an hour. I get more money around here, $3 to $6 an hour more somewhere nearby. If they go to La Crosse, they can make $80 an hour.
but the information.
You gotta ask them how much they make an hour.
He did
Well,
put in
they
there what their,
have that here.
he did
So,
put in there what their hourly rates are,
Yeah.
what they charge us for hourly rates.
Right, they have that on here.
Which is usually about twice of what they pay the person.
Yeah.
What anybody's hourly cost. Yeah, I know I saw Sean had, kind of showed information, or I just saw it prior, about different positions, and I think the GIS position was one, showing it comparable to other counties. And we're way low compared to all those other counties. And some of them were making, I think, up to $35 an hour. I don't remember which county that was, but, you know, it's, obviously, we're never gonna fill it. I agree with Mike, we're never gonna fill it.
I think
For
that's starting out
the
better.
salary.
I mean, we're getting specialty people and keeping up with all those things. It's hard for an in-house person to keep up with all that.
Well, one of the things I would suggest that we could do as a committee is that we plan on a one-year contract with
Mhm.
whoever. And at the end of that year, we evaluate how well it's working.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's working well, then maybe we consider to continue it. If it's not working well and we really feel, then that's the time when we have the conversation, okay, we really need someone in-house, but we have to pay them. And so it has to be, you know, we have to change the wage scale to be competitive.
So we still need to work the numbers on this third way to see how much we're saving by the contract.
Right, okay, so let's just say we got 59,000 from the tax levy for Lynn. So let's just say that we're gonna spend, well, we can either spend 21,000, or we can spend,
What do you think? I don't, I mean, somehow I felt that the first one seemed like they were, even though the second one's just getting started, so I don't want to cut them out, but the first one seemed to have such a history with this. What do you think, Mike?
I had mentioned, I mean, they've been here since 2000, I think, pretty much, with Richland County. You asked them that question about the extra, they made an application for Richland County that when we go out to do the sanitation permits, we do that little GIS box, like he said, we do the septic, we punch in the well, we punch in the tank, location, all that stuff. We're doing that out in the field, so then when we come back in, we can put it in the computer, and then once a week, that all goes into the main system out there in the cloud, wherever it's at, but I mean, they've done a lot of things like for us, I mean, the flood in 2017 or wherever that was, I mean, we called them up and said, we need road closure maps, we need this and that, and they dropped everything and they came to help us.
So that you're saying the service is great,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Madam Chair,
yes, Mr. Turk.
discussion of the contracts is not on the agenda. We had presentation interviews, but we had nothing about consideration or discussion.
Right, the way that it's tying into this item though is one of the ways that we are talking about filling our required $50,000 cut would be by not filling Lynn's position and using a contract service in order to, and then we kind of have to talk a little bit about how much that is. So I feel like we're still on the agenda because we are so if you look at 05B, the last paragraph, that's what we're talking about right
We
now.
just can't make an award decision.
Yeah, it's
Right.
5, budget cuts, discussion and response.
Yeah, we're on.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit touchy, but I think we're okay with this paragraph that's in here and published in our documents. So one of the contracts is 45,000, the other one was 20.
I got 20,000.
Call it 21.
Yeah, 21. That's
Right.
in essence, yeah.
The first one, they did, that does consider, or does include configuring that open data portal. So looking at like Adams County's
Yeah,
website and seeing all the interface for the public, that includes that.
and they were talking about having that extra.
Yes.
So, but if we go with a lower amount of that contract, we would almost be there and we wouldn't
Exactly,
have to cut other positions.
right.
So,
Have we done any other work with that? The second group?
Oh, yeah.
we've done extensive work with
But not
on
this
many
kind of work.
other planning things. We've done a lot of
Right.
work.
But nothing GIS related?
I can't answer that question.
Well, they do,
Well, they've
as
done-
part of their projects, they do GIS things, but they've not done GIS services directly for us.
So
It's hard because the numbers are not,
Yeah, because
Close.
we'd save about 15,000 if we went with them, right? Am I figuring that or?
Well, you gotta figure in the other costs, or how we're gonna do the
30 options.
three options.
Right, but we are obviously paying MSA for that already though. So that's a cost that
Right.
we're already paying, but we just don't know what the cost is.
Correct.
Who would know that? You guys, MIS?
Which one are you talking about?
that should be something Clinton should be able to.
I'm talking about the three options.
No,
How
I
are
know
we
that.
paying
Are
for
you
the
talking about
cloud?
this group or the first group or the
Either
second
group, we're currently paying somehow, we're paying for the
Yes.
cloud.
The cloud
Yes.
access.
Yeah,
The service fee for that.
and we didn't ask the first guy.
Well, we must be because they're already doing it.
He might not.
We need an answer to that question. I mean, I don't know if it really matters. I mean, we're either paying one party or another, I think.
So do we, or currently have an open contract with MSA for some things? Are they currently doing anything under contract for us at all?
They help maintain stuff, so like when Lynn had questions or anything like that, there are certain projects that come up. One of the things that's in that 12-point things that they gotta do is we have to do the twice a year, send the information to the state.
Right.
That's something that.
Okay.
I mean, it's a fee, but I mean, we give them information, they take care of it for us.
Yeah, so we're currently like paying for that as a separate little project.
Yeah, they do have them projects for us.
But that was in the list of tasks that
That would be
generated, so
included,
they
so-
know about it.
Yeah, so if we went with them, we would save that amount because then it's already included in this contract over here. Versus paying for it separately.
Right.
And then also
Right.
the cloud part too, whatever that amount is that we're paying, the monthly fee for them to provide that service. Those two things we're currently paying, we wouldn't pay under this because, well, the cloud we still would have to either way. That's not covered in
I
there.
don't really want to speak on that, and I'm sure like John doesn't want to speak on it too much. but I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
something
we
that's
just
hard to
really-
face and know, and if they were here, they could explain it
Are
first.
all going to join.
Or Clinton, is he?
Didn't have the detail. He's on.
Madam Chair, this is Clint. Was there a question that I missed there?
If he could know that number, he would know that number.
Do you know how much we are currently paying for our GIS data to be in a cloud through MSA?
Not off the top of my head. I can try to do some research and see if I can get back to you folks before the conclusion of the meeting, or if it's thereafter, I'll email it to you.
Well, let's have MIS Director, Ms. Scott, do you know the answer to that question?
Could you repeat the question? I just joined.
Okay, so we would like to know how much it is costing us currently for our GIS data to be in the cloud through MSA.
Hold on, because actually our GIS data being in the cloud is hosted here, correct?
Yeah, it's not in.
It isn't in the cloud by them, it's in the cloud by us.
So no matter who we use to do this, that cost would be the same then?
There is no cost. It's
Right.
never-
Yes,
Well,
it's
that's not true. There is a cost.
significant cost because you have to maintain a server licensing, backups.
We currently have a
Everything else.
server.
But that's already included in your budget, though. All those costs would already be included in your budget?
That depends on how you'd like me to answer that, because that would be part of the cuts that I was asked to justify, why I didn't make.
Do you know how much it costs? Do you have any, do we have any cloud-based fees right now for any other kind of data?
Well, I'm not trying to be, like, we have cloud-based EHRs, we have cloud for Pine Valley and for HHS. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot of different cloud-based apps.
Okay.
Yeah, we just, even like our AS400 system, correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
just switched that to cloud base.
Well, just the backups, not the actual AS400 itself.
Gonna have to move in the register of deeds.
And the register of deeds will be going to cloud-based, next year.
And what, do you know what that cost was approximately?
Well, I know it was 40,000, I believe, to get started, and plus,
Broke down over several
yeah,
years.
that's broke down over 3 years, but I know that the initial cost is 40,000 to get started.
So it seems to me that the information we heard from Southwest Regional Planning about their ability to do the credits and all of their information and data is $1,200 a year. So even if we were double that, let's say we're double their amount of data,
Right,
we'd be only $2,400 a year to use the cloud-based system that they are currently using.
yes.
That's the impression
Yeah,
I
because he
got.
said we didn't have that much.
He thought we had much less than what they
Yeah.
house there.
Right.
I would be extremely nervous about that. I'm not sure, that does not sound, that doesn't sound like they're understanding what we're asking.
In
That
what way?
doesn't sound right at all.
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, I'm just heard what was said.
And why doesn't that sound right? Can I ask?
Yeah.
What was actually asked for the proposals and stuff?
What was the request for proposal that went to them? Where was the RFP that went to them?
Yeah, so we've had this discussion. There was not an RFP. There was an email from Lynn that was sent to both vendors that they both used to come up with a proposal of what work they would do.
If you go to our folder for this meeting, there's a copy of Lynn's email was sent to the vendors with her bullet points of what their scope should be. That's what they bid on.
And the question came up from one of the vendors. The question came up, where is your data currently housed? And we didn't know the answer to that question. And they said there's generally 3 different options. One is the server-based, one is the cloud-based, and what was the other one?
I wrote it down.
The portal bits.
Yeah,
A portal-based. Yeah,
That's where it's charged on the credits.
right,
That third one was
right.
the third one was, yeah.
what they consider the credits.
So they seemed very clear that they are housing their GIS, GIS data and other data that they have, they are housing in the cloud, and it costs them $1,200 a year.
Okay, and does that include maintenance then of such data, and how often do we get to update it?
So how she explained it was that it's on a credit-based system, so however many times you enter data, that's when you get charged a credit. And so you can enter it as often as you want. The more times you are entering data, she was saying that a lot of times she will do all the GIS work offline and then upload it all together at once so that it's only one entry time.
Okay, but who's gonna do the GIS data? I'm not clear on that.
That their GIS specialist would be doing that when we ask them to.
Okay,
Same as what MSA was saying. Their GIS people would enter it when we ask them to.
so how are we gonna link all of our sites back to theirs?
Through the cloud? I don't know.
But they have to be indexed and then come back to us so that when we,
That's a separate piece, but
right, well,
my concern is just going off of an email of some bullet point, that just
I can't find the email.
makes me nervous on what we're asking of each vendor, because MSA is currently familiar with all of our processes and all of what interactions that they had with the zoning department. And I'm just not sure that we're comparing apples to apples. I mean, there's a whole process here that we're missing on how an address point gets from point A to point B. Because we also have to work with Crossroads and getting the data that's updated for the 911 mapping. There's also an export that we do quarterly for the insight mapping that may change. There's something that goes on with the property lister and splits, and it seems like there was data getting changed on a fairly regular basis, and I'm
Okay.
not sure who would have all that knowledge of how those pieces all went together, but I can find a whole bunch of address issues that need to be addressed at some point, just as we're going through this Spillman data on how to validate addresses, and we're coming up with all sorts of anomalies that need to be addressed.
All right, so I'm gonna suggest something, and please shoot me down if you don't agree with this. So I received a phone call from Administrator Langrick a week ago saying that we have GIS data that is piling up that is essential that it get done now.
Mhm.
And he asked if I would approve, just having MSA do the work for now, since they are familiar with everything, while we look at these two different contracts. I'm gonna suggest that we write a new RFP that includes all of the concerns that MIS is bringing forward, and we resubmit those to these entities and potentially maybe other entities, I don't know, but whatever, at least the two that we've got who are already, and just have them look at it to see if there's any difference in how they would propose, how they would present their proposals.
I think that as long as
That seems-
MSA feels like they can jump in and do that for a short-term basis.
They've already
Then I
agreed
think
to it.
If you explain to them that we need to incorporate more MIS department in this.
Yes,
Do you think that we can ask, instead of October 31st, and our meeting is November
no, I don't think we
7th,
can
for
ask.
an extension for 1 week?
So I already did in my other committee, I'd hate to do it in this committee too, because then I look like I can't get shit done. So
Well, you're
Stuff
trying,
done.
you're trying. I mean, this is really a hard decision because
it is.
we can't.
Yeah, but there is no way that we're gonna have that done and back by October 31st.
Right, obviously. No, we know that, Barb. We know. That's why.
Okay, okay, just so you weren't having expectations at MIS that I was gonna fail at.
Well, you said it was, okay, you got 59,000, and if you use,
so if we use
MSA's numbers.
MSA, then that leaves us with $13,000 additional.
Well, what about we go halftime with the position in, Tammy vendors, go halftime with that position, and then assuming we're gonna go with one of these vendors, which will
Save us some
save
money.
us some money.
You're also assuming that Tammy would go to halftime, because
Well, I don't know.
So Tammy's retiring,
I don't
so
know.
this is not gonna happen
Oh,
until
okay.
2024, and there will be a new
Okay.
person.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say.
Sounds like she's
all
thinking
of
to
that.
retire in 23.
Okay,
She's really, really, yeah,
Well, I mean, once we do this, it'll be a for sure
Yeah.
thing.
And
But
by
if
that
she's
time,
comfortable
you'll be,
with that, right?
and by that time, they'll be moved into your offices and we can figure out how things are functioning. I'm speaking for you guys, and I don't know what you think.
you're assuming you can hire somebody that will only work halftime and get no benefits.
Well, they get benefits at halftime.
Oh, they do, okay,
There's a possibility, yeah.
Yeah.
You want them.
okay.
So can you repeat your proposed
Okay,
solution here?
so Barb, my proposal is that we are going to ask you to take what Lynn wrote and incorporate any concerns and, whatever else you think needs to be added to that to make sure we are actually going to be comparing apples to apples and knowing specifically what we want. Is
Okay,
that-
can you direct me, and you can do this in another email or something. I can't find what she wrote.
Okay, yeah, it's actually on our iPads. It's in the folder for today's meeting. It's item number 04A.
Okay. So that's what we gave them.
That's what
And
we did.
then- But we have to be more specific, like provide maps too. We need to be
Whatever
more
you think-
specific.
Yeah, but whatever you think needs to be stated so that we are asking for exactly what we need.
Okay,
Here, put in the chat, hosting price from Fiedler.
6,000 a year.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for that, but then there's also the setup fees.
Okay.
So I think your idea is right. I mean, will you communicate with both of them why that we're
Yeah,
working with MIS and we realize we need to have more information?
there's some concerns that we need to
Yeah.
make sure we have.
Hire MSA and say, in the meantime, to not do our backlog, we need to do this.
So Lynn's position is 89,000, but only 59 from the
Yeah.
levy. So if we if we were to just say, let's just err on the side of caution and go with the higher
Yeah,
contract,
the 30.
then that leaves us with, a $13,000 cut
Right.
in Lynn's salary. But I'm not sure, but that's not gonna get us there with a halftime, so
No,
she
that's-
just handed me a piece of paper that says
You said it was
Here it is.
62 now.
58,300 is Tammy's 2023 salary.
Oh, 58,300, so, what is that? I got 20.
So if we cut,
And 20,
But you
28,
gotta
right?
remember, if you cut insurance, if you go to halftime, the insurance, they pay more.
who pays more?
The county pays less, this person pays more.
I mean, just for our own purposes, we'll just cut it in half.
Yep.
I think, just because we also have that, we need to be able to come up with more than 50,000. So if we say we do a half-time position, so that is exactly, so 58,300 divided by 2
29.
is $29,150. And then we're saying we would save, we'd be able to cut 13,000 from our GIS position.
So we're
maybe more.
150, right?
So we're still not there though.
Well, let's say we're gonna increase fees by around $8,000 and spread it out however you want.
Or they've got on here the maintenance fees to go from 25 to 50. Maybe move that to 50, but not increase the late
Let's
fees.
leave that up to Mike. We'll
Yeah.
just say, you need to increase fees to get us another 8,000, and let Mike decide what's best.
I'm just saying they've got on here, that'd be around an extra 45,000, so that would be a lot of money, yeah. It's a possibility.
Are the maintenance fees, or is that what you're talking about for septic recertification or whatever, every 3 years? Septic thing? We all pay them?
Yeah, I just paid mine, $25. I thought it was really cheap. I did, seriously.
It's 12:30.
Yes, I know. Okay,
The other thing that they're not calculating into that too is you can use grant money to help pay one of those new companies to do.
The work.
so it's
Right.
appropriate to use what you're always complaining about, using what we were saying.
Right now, this year, for another example, is you're using $130,000 out of that grant money to pay your guys' budget or whatever. I would say we're supposed to try and bring that down, and it's not been done yet. Every time we start doing it, then you guys turn around and bring it back up. This year it's supposed to be on 62,000.
But if
I
we-
said it's still 130,000 you're taking out of that stuff.
I'm not following what you're saying. What, explain that again?
So we get the grant money. It's 126,000 for this year.
To be used,
But the county is using $130,000 of the grant to pay items.
what is the grant money supposed to be allocated for?
GIS projects, mapping and stuff like that.
Okay,
Doing PLS corners and stuff like that.
how can we use it for a different purpose?
Yeah,
Therein lies the rub.
Okay,
anyways, that's why it's so high. They're trying to bring that down, but we haven't brought it down yet. So I mean, even if you put 40,000 out of that grant money to that position, you're still cutting that $130,000 down, but that's what the money's supposed to be for, is project get mapping done and stuff like that.
So it'd be appropriate to pay the entire 45,000,
yes.
You could probably, yeah,
because they're only doing GIS work.
right. The problem is that I kept on saying that you're looking at position that does GIS work and
Sanitation.
sanitation. And then you're trying to make it sound like they make all that GIS time, and how much money was for salaries for 89,000,
49,000.
and you're taking 130 out. Do the math. That's what I keep on saying. You gotta bring that number back down. I mean, when it first started, it was only $30,000, and then when you hired the county administrator, it went from 30 to 130. And it was said that whenever we wanted to bring that back down tax levy, there'd be no issue. That's never happened.
So you're saying we want to bring the tax levy portion up? We need to go up in our tax levy portion so that we can go down in what we charge to the grant?
No, it isn't. So remember how I told you the grants determined?
Right. Well, I don't remember, I remember sort of what you told
So I
me.
mean, it doesn't do anything with tax levy. It's just that when that grant is calculated out, I can't remember, it's in October's of how much it's gonna be. But there's a fee that, or a calculation fee that all comes with that number. So I mean, when we used to have it before, that we were taking money out of the grant to pay salaries, all that money went to projects like the PLS corners and stuff like that. Mapping out the issues. That's what we spent the money on, but then it was, okay, we got cut back on the budget. So then we took $30,000 out to cover costs of employee time, GIS stuff. And then all of a sudden it bumped up to 130,000. That's where it's at right now. So that's what I'm saying, if we can bump that back down, but it's still covered by, the grant can still cover the cost of, say, MSA or whichever one you go with. You can use that money, because that's what the specified use of that money is for, is to do some projects like that.
So then that means using it like it's supposed to be, leaves somebody else with a hole to fill.
Well, there's two parts of it, because remember, you're also looking at power position, that's what I'm trying to do a lot right now, that, so I mean, some of that 89,000 can go and be used for a raise for, say, Jack's position, because she's getting more added things to her position. But, I mean, you can still save money, but I think it's more than what you're calculating out, if you really think about it. I mean, take that, say if Jackie got $6,000 for extra costs for doing college or whatever, and then nothing out of 89,000, you probably could save or use tax levy for that position of 89,000 down to 6,000. Because the other part of it would be covered by that grant.
Clint, are you still on there?
I am.
So, were you following at all the conversation we were just having? Mike was talking about the land grant, right?
Land information.
Land information grant. There's 130,000 currently being taken from that grant. What does that pay for?
You're asking me what does 130,000 pay for right now out of the land grant?
Yeah, what is that currently in the 2023 budget? What is that paying for?
Our salaries.
Whose salaries?
My
Yours?
salary, and salary, and the Jackie's salary.
It's
It's both used up.
That's from the levy.
No, this is the land grant.
Oh,
it's dispersed in a percentage to the different salaries for the different positions, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, is that correct?
All right.
mhm.
And what you're saying is that 130,000 should not be used for those salaries.
The idea of the grant was not to be used to pay salaries, it was for projects and all that stuff. It started out a long time ago.
Well, but if an employee is doing that project, then it is appropriate.
It's appropriate, but I mean, that wasn't the intent of it. The intent was to do projects. So the GIS person who was doing the floodplain map, or flood or something like that, I mean, something like that's more appropriate than, well, we're just gonna pay someone's salary and we're just using that grant money.
So are you saying that they think that you would hire someone else to do specific projects and that money would be used that way? And you would not ever use it on a salary for people?
That's the intent, is to
In-house.
do projects, say like that one that goes to the states. Or
Could we get the grant, put in our folder so we can read it?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna think, because what's the intention of the
We're talking
grant? It should
stuff, but
say
I don't know all the facts.
what it's, the purpose of the
is
grant.
it in there from last month meeting,
The grant?
I've never seen it.
grant application?
I think so.
I think
I don't-
we had an application.
When we had a resolution that we approved to accept the land, the grant.
Yeah, you still have quorum and
But I don't think it talks about the like, specific conditions of it.
Welcome to the.
Because that's what we need to know is what, when we receive the grant, they tell you this is what it can be used for. That's what we need to know.
right?
That's what we need to know.
This is the land information grant that it was extended to cover different portions of each position's, each of the position in the zoning's office. And we've been whittling back on that grant, correct, each year.
We've been trying to, but still at
Yeah,
100.
because Janetta originally got that idea to use it for salaries.
And so I think it's pared back now to something that seems like it's more comfortable, my understanding with other counties is they do apply some of it towards their GS types of positions, but I don't know if that's like the original intent of what came out from the department that it comes from at the state level, but putting it towards GIS, to the best of my understanding, is kind of acceptable use, at least in comparing what other counties have been done. Is that what you've experienced, Mike?
Right, they're using parts of it, but not the whole thing to pay everyone's salary.
And that's why I want to read the darn grant, so I can get a feel for what you guys are talking about.
Sure.
Who's got, do you do the grant application every year?
Yep,
You have a copy of it, you can put it in our folders?
Well,
yep.
it's not just the grant application, the actual grant
That tells what it's,
wording from the,
Yeah.
I mean, if you even Google it, you can even Google lands.
I could, but it'd be nice if it was put in my folders instead of me looking for it for an hour.
All right, so I think what you were trying to say though, is that you think somehow there's probably,
Okay, let's go through the math here. So you're saying 89,000,
is Lynn's current position cost,
right?
but then you have to subtract.
Let's see, you're.
I want to know what is on the levy for her position.
Currently, there is no levy that's going for her position right now because it's 100%.
Well, you said there was.
You said that there was 30,000
Toward the
from
levy.
That's what the
30,000 of
goal
her
was.
salary was from the grant, and there was still 59 taken from the levy.
The goal was we're trying to get down to that $30,000. Like right now, it's supposed to be 64 for 2002. But it's at 130 yet.
Do you know?
That's, remember I sent you that email about that several months ago?
No, I don't remember. How much of Lynn's position comes from the levy?
You have to go talk with Tammy. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can track that down if you need that right now.
Well, I mean, we have to make a decision as to how we're gonna cover our 50,000. And that's a part of the
Let's, I
situation.
hate to leave because I want to be here for the vote. I
I don't know what to do. I can't make it go any faster.
have to be somewhere at 1 o'clock.
I do too.
I was gonna eat a banana and then go.
Well, I mean, the other option is we just make the decision. We just make the decision to cut this receptionist position to halftime and make up the rest in fees. And maybe we have the opportunity, I mean, we could put a caveat in there that we may not have to raise fees if we can recover the costs through contracting of Lynn's position. That's one way we could phrase it.
I think we should phrase it that way because I'm sure we're gonna make some. There must be some, I don't think it's all covered.
So are we comfortable with the statement that we would for sure cut the secretarial or administrative position to halftime? And that the rest would be made up in fees, and if we are able to make up any more of it within Lynn's position and our contracting of the GIS work, that we would then reduce the fees, or would not increase the fees?
What you said, yeah.
I'll move that.
Okay.
I feel that moving it from 25 to 50 for fees, I mean, people I think are gonna be fine with paying $50 every 3 years instead of $25 every 3 years.
See how many
Just my 2
proposals
cents.
you get.
But, because, it referenced 45,000, now I understand that's the late fees. Getting that, I don't know how many late fees that are, but I would prefer to raise $25 to $50 for that versus cutting a position. That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, you mean not cutting the half?
Not cutting it to half-time, to leaving the position alone and raising it from 25 to 50, I just don't know how much money that would be.
So the only concern I have with that is, I do feel like we need to make an effort to cut back on some staff in some places.
Sounds like she's pretty crucial to their department, and they're gonna have to close their
I know.
office a lot.
Well, not a lot, just once in a while.
That's, I mean, I guess that's up to you guys. I mean, I know part of our effort has been to try to be more, from the public standpoint of making sure that we are as streamlined staff-wise as possible. And I don't feel like we've made any headway in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know that their department is a department that's overstaffed. There may be some departments that are, but doesn't sound like theirs is.
Well, maybe this is what budget cutting looks like.
Yeah,
You know?
sure it is.
We're gonna have to close the office once every month or something, and that's just part of it.
So I guess I need someone to, so you made a
I
motion to
made
do
the
what I
motion.
said.
Is that okay?
Did someone second it?
Say the motion.
So the motion would be
To cut the secretary, LCD secretary
position
to
to
half-time and the rest made up in fees, maintenance fees.
maintenance fees, unless we can attain the cuts through contracting. our
Unless
GIS
if it is
firm,
made up through the GIS position.
in which case we would not raise fees.
Right.
I'll second that if that all got captured.
Okay. Mr. Turk, did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna call a vote. Do we want to do voice vote a roll call, or we just want to vote? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm a nay.
All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 1 no, so it passes.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow night.
All right,
I will type this up again.
you guys, I'm gonna create an entire document that we'll send to finance. You guys, I will send you a copy of what I come up with,
Yeah,
that we're gonna send to finance. And if it's not right, we'll have to talk about it at finance and modify it at finance.
okay,
Okay, but I will send you whatever I write up of what we talked about today
okay.
beforehand.
What about what Barb's gonna generate? How quickly can we do that?
I will find that out and let you know.
Okay.
They'll definitely be on the next, keep it on the next agenda.
Yeah. Okay, Clint, I do think I need to know that information as far as how much is paid for by what, but I think we can probably take care of it offline.
We should be good.
Okay. Okay,
For quorum, so.
yeah, right. Okay, well, we still have quorum with him there, so.
Oh, do we? Okay,
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah, but that's okay, we're still gonna wrap it up and we're gonna talk about it again. Cause I think there's no reason why we also can't talk about it at the next meeting, and if we wanna modify what we say to finance, we can still do it at that point. I mean, they didn't give us a whole lot of time, so. But, I mean,
Do you have the exact number then? Because you said it's not 50,000, it's more than 50,000, so what is the exact number you got cut?
well, I'll come up, I'm gonna talk with Clint a little bit more about trying to use whatever estimates we can to get as accurate as we can of what the raises and we're talking about that last line where it says, plus we'll cover the raises and insurance increases and stuff over the next 4 years.
In other words, we can't just say 50. We need to say what it is for each of the years.
Well, the number still arrives at 50, it's just, it can't be, I think what we talked about is like, it has to be 50, but it's,
But then we also have to have
Yeah.
we have to have some, in the preceding, next few years, we also have to cover raises and insurance increases. essentially.
yeah, that's kind of, I think, I was.
Yeah.
put together.
All right, I'll create the document that I think we talked about today, and I will send it all to you, and then we will, if there's any issues with it, we will have to discuss it at finance, if we want to make any changes. Because it goes to, I'm gonna send it to you, and then you bring it to finance, is that how this is gonna work?
Yes,
And then it'll go to referendum committee?
depending on what.
When you say discuss it at finance, I mean, like, I don't go to the finance meetings, I'm not on that group, so.
But you can attend online if
I
you have
could.
questions, or you can send me questions that I
Okay.
will then talk about online to make sure that everything is discussed in an open meeting.
Okay.
Okay, with that said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I have a motion, a second. Carol, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, guys. I appreciate everyone being able to get this meeting done last minute here.